I had to change my cameras. Hold on 1 second. There we go. So my camera this morning decided to go bananas. And guess what? I was not going to change. I wasn't going to restart my computer. So you have a wider screen version of my camera. There we are. So if it goes black for a second, that's because I had to switch out my cameras, and yeah, I'll deal with that later. So welcome to my coffee and curriculum chat. This is where I get real candid about um, curriculum connections. It's not so formal with as it is on my um as formal as it is on my YouTube channel. So like when I put out content, I am putting out like real narrowly focused content. So that's what I do on my YouTube channels and even on my social media channels. So that's what you see. So the coffee and curriculum chat is where I get to talk about connections and other things that bring everything together. I'm sharing today some content and some concepts that I am actually teaching to my Math Intervention Academy, and it's making connections between the four operations. What makes math really simple to me, anyway, is that it's only four operations. You can only multiply, add, subtract, and divide. That is it. It is only four operations. And I feel like, at the elementary level, they make it so difficult that a lot of the kids get confused. I know for me, when I taught fifth grade and fourth grade, the students were really struggling with when to divide and when to multiply. Um, because some of them would use, and teachers would allow them to continue to use repeated addition. The goal of the curriculum is to progress, and I think a lot of teachers lose sight of that the curriculum is there for students to progress through a vertical alignment as they move through the curriculum and grade levels. But one of the things that teachers have a huge habit of doing is allowing students to continue to use ineffective strategies for their current grade level or the next grade level. For example, multiplying and using repeated addition. I know a lot of teachers are like, well, make just as long as they get the answer. That's really not the goal of teaching. Teaching is to progress and move our students along. And you cannot do that if you allow them to use repeated addition when they're supposed to multiply or subtract when they're supposed to divide. Yes, essentially these two are connected. However, they are not one and the same. And problem solving will show that weakness, especially in standardized tests, because a standardized test, and I'm talking about a criterion reference test, I'm not talking about norm reference, because norm reference tests are really skill based. A criterion reference test will expose that weakness in the student when you say multiplying and dividing. And that's what the student expectation actually says that they must do. it will expose it by tripping the children up and having them confused when they're supposed to multiply and divide. And today I'm going to talk about some of those connections and how to move students along through the vertical alignment. But before I get started, if you're watching live, please drop in the comment section where you're watching from. And we're going to go ahead and get started. For those of you all who are new to my channel and new to my content, my name is Michelle, aka the Ignited Teacher. And what I do on my channels is I am helping math teachers who teach students who are working well below their grade level to close learning gaps. That's basically what I do to try to help strengthen tier one and ultimately tier two instruction, but minimize your tier two participants by strengthening your tier one content. I also provide um, effective research based strategies that can be implemented in your classroom as early as the next day. So, thank you for. So let me go ahead and start because when we're teaching, we have to know where we're going and where the students came from. So, what do the students have to know as prerequisite skills? Those are those skills that build the foundation for the current grade level. Now, I'm going to use some terminology, so let's get that out of the way. The horizontal and the vertical alignment. Your horizontal alignment is for the current grade level. So, for example, if you're teaching third grade, it will be those skills that the students need for third grade. The vertical alignment is the alignment where the students need it for um, moving through a specific strand. For example, multiplication and division, which we know are our Achilles heel sometimes. So let me share my screen. Let me see if it's going to bring it up. Let me bring, because I have a coherence map that I wanted to share. And I'm seeing if it's going to bring it up. I'm going to try to reload it again. Okay, there it is. All right, so this is a coherence map, and let me get my uh, change over. So you all can see me. There we go. All right, so this I use this with Achieve the Core. I use it because it's first of all, it's Common Core, and a lot of the states have are using Common Core standards, but because of politics, they're not using Common Core. So, but they are still the Common Core state standards. So, I like to use Achieve the Core to help with this. Let me see if I can. Oh, there it is. Let me move this over so I can. Close this out. Okay, there we go. So it's called Achieve the Core, and it has a coherence map. The coherence map is where you use it to connect vertical, and it has the horizontal alignment, which are your grade level tools. So let me go ahead and pull that up. This thing is running slow. There it is. And the coherence map, it shows the connections between the standards, and that's all it does. So I'm gonna click on get started, and I'm just showing this so that you'll understand where I'm coming from. So it has first, second, third, fourth. And if you click on fourth grade, it brings up the strands for fourth grade. So operations in algebraic reasoning, thinking, number and operations in base 10, number and operations in fractions, measurement data, and geometry. So in essence, it's only 5 strands, but those strands are really, really comprehensive for those grade levels. So if I click on number and operation, which that's where your 4 operations fall, it's going to bring up those standards for fourth grade. Okay. So like fourth grade and this standard MBTEB6, it says find whole number quotients and remainders with up to 4 digits. So if I wanted to map this standard, I can click this, and it's going to connect. And then they got all these pop-ups. So it takes you through and shows you what it means. So I'll click all, I'm all set. So it actually maps it for you and connects those for you. So number base 10. So as teachers, you don't have to go searching for a needle in a haystack. So it'll tell you on the left, third grade standard is connected to the fourth grade standard. This is your vertical alignment. And then it tells you how it's connected to that horizontal alignment, 40A83, and then that 5 MBT strand. So you know where the kids are coming from and where they're going. So Achieve the Core is a really, really, really good tool to use because it helps you to figure out, okay, what were they supposed to know? And especially if you're new to math or new to teaching, it tells you what the kids should know and where they're going and how it connects. Because a lot of times, those strategies that they need for the next grade level, a lot of teachers mess that up for the next grade level. So let me go ahead and jump on into, I'm going to share my iPad. Now, when we're talking about connecting the 4 operations, let me get this together. If I have 20 minus 8, and my handwriting is not that great, so forgive me, 200 minus 18 and 2000 minus 18. The first step in getting children to be fluent with algorithms and understanding is to bring in some of those literacy strategies that are in reading. So this will be compare and contrast. So the comparing and contrast would be here. So how would we solve 20 minus 8? How will we solve 200 minus 18 and 2000 minus 18? What would be similar and what would be different? And these will help you bring in some really, really, really rich conversations about how to solve these problems. So that's the first step, understanding how it is different. Because one of the issues that we have with subtraction and addition is when students have to change the strategy for adding and subtracting. Regrouping is definitely an issue on the addition and the subtraction end. It is not the same. It's not the same. And the children get confused because a lot of times as teachers, we show one or two types of problem, but we don't go deep enough to where children have to say, okay, this is a different type of problem. It has two zeros instead of one. So what happens when I'm supposed to subtract and it has two zeros? Now I'm going to move on to our connecting addition and multiplication. So let me switch back to my iPad. On one. So here, when I teach multiplication, multiplication is repeated addition, but in fourth and fifth, the students need to make the jump. That's where they need to make the jump. So here we have repeated addition. And say, for instance, the students are taught 2 plus 2 plus 2 is equal 6, but it's also three groups of 2, which equals 6, which is 3 times 2 equals 6. So that's third grade. It may be second, but by the time the students get to fourth grade, they should no longer be able to do this. Because what you want to do is move the kids through the vertical alignment. And this is the vertical alignment. And I know some people are going to say, or some teachers are going to say, well, they don't know how to do it. Well, as a teacher, you're the one that is supposed to teach them how to do it. And I disagree, and this is just my personal preference, with teaching just a unit of multiplication and set and forget. Multiplication and division is a year-long practice. I don't care what you're doing because it's going to show up in every horizontal strand for your grade level. Once students are introduced to multiplication and division, it will show up in every other strand. Meaning, when I showed you achieve the core, where it had number, base 10, number and operation and fractions, it said number operation. That means addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. That's what that meant. It meant those four operations, and that you're going to have to apply them with fractions. Even in measurement, those four operations will show up. So if you are allowing your students in fourth and fifth grade to continue to use repeated addition, you're going to find that your standardized test scores are going to be low. I'm not saying, oh, we teach to test. What I'm telling you is that criterion reference test it's going to say, hey, your students are not proficient in this strand because they're not using multiplication. They don't know when to use multiplication. They're constantly using repeated addition. And I've seen this more times with teachers who say, well, the kids, I thought they knew it. Well, if they're adding and there's a problem that says, hey, which strategy will be an effective strategy to use, they're going to get tripped up because they're going to choose addition as a fourth grader when it should be multiplication, and they don't understand it. That's what I'm saying about that connection. So back to my iPad. In fourth grade, they should be able, in fifth grade, should be able to understand that 3 times 2 equals 6. 3 times 2 equals 6. Now, an effective strategy, if you want to connect it, I use a T-chart, and some people call it ratio tables. It can be used in sixth grade to expand as a process table. So 1 times 3 is 3, 2 times 3 is 6, 3 times 3 is 9, 4, 12, and it helps with patterns. This is a more progressive model to help your students with multiplication facts as they become more fluent with those facts. Because it can be used for other things, especially in secondary for your secondary teachers, and you're not stifling the students, and it connects, hey, these are patterns. That's all they are. And it helps the students to make connections and anchor what they know about patterns as they strengthen their fluency. Now with subtraction, let me move on over here. With subtraction, it is different. Now I'm going to go back to this idea of subtracting. Subtraction is repeated addition, but in the standard algorithm, if students are not proficient in subtraction, they will not be proficient in division. It just doesn't work that way. Long division, and I know some elementary teachers will say, well, we had strategies for long division. Well, if you don't understand, like I said with that coherence map, as the students move through the vertical alignment, some strategies are ineffective for secondary. Because I'm going to tell you, as a 6th, 7th, or 8th grade teacher, which I have taught middle school math, I don't want my students using brain power on trying to figure out the answer. There should be a strategy in place for subtracting. I always begin the school year with teaching my students how to subtract. In 8th grade, they had calculators, so that was basically taken care of. But 6th and 7th grade, I teach them how to subtract because it just clears up all the misconceptions and errors, and I start with a conceptual model. So I'm going to show you how to connect. Let me move on. Trying to get my iPad together. All right, so pulling this up. When we're talking about subtraction in division, so say for instance, we have 32, well, 1,215 divided by 32. Well, there are 3 different operations in division. First of all, there's this. The students have to be able to understand that they have to, this is the first one, multiplication. And many of the fifth and fourth grade standards, student expectations, the standard algorithm is a part of that. In sixth grade, middle school, they should be able to do this. This is something that we should move our students through. So, this is a way. And I also connected back. Remember, I talked about the coherence map with decomposing. So, if a student cannot multiply effectively, I take them back to the decomposing into place value. So it's easier to say two groups of 30, which is 60, and two groups of 2 is 4, so you get 64. That's an easier way, and you're not watering down your tier 1 instruction. This is an effective strategy to help them as they learn how to divide. Now, if we say, okay, this is 0, they're subtracting. So here we are again. So even if they say this is 3 groups, that's 90. 3 groups, that's 6. So that's 96. You see how simple that is to help students and make those connections? You don't have to go back to repeated addition. You don't have to have students saying 32, 32, 32 doing that. Because I have seen this. I've seen it. And this is an ineffective strategy. This number bond strengthens the kids' understanding of multiplication because this is that repeated addition, but it's still at a fourth grade level. And as the kids do it more often and it's more repetitive, it helps them with it. So let me go undo that so you all can see. So the last one would be, so we have 4. So now the student should, because you're strengthening that pattern, which repeated addition. So we have 4 groups of 30, which they should know, okay, 60, 90, 120. And you see the pattern. 2 groups of 2 is 4. Um, 3 groups of 2 is 6. So what would be 4 groups of 6, which would be 12? And you just add it together in 132. And you know that you're going to either choose 3 or 4. That is a more comprehensive strategy than allowing your students to constantly, especially in 4th and 5th grade, to use repeated addition and not being able to subtract. Yes, repeated subtraction is division, but like I said, a good criterion reference test, which your children have to take at the end of the school year, will expose those weaknesses in your students' inability to multiply and divide. It will expose that they are using repeated addition and repeated subtraction to get those answers. Now, moving back to, let me see. We're on the top. I'm going to my last point is integers and number lines. And number lines and number sense in the elementary grade levels. So in first, and let me change my color. Go back to black. So in first grade, they use number lines. And one of the problems that we have in middle school is that middle school students, well, I'll say secondary students, are not familiar even with number lines because they haven't had enough practice and understanding. Like even when sometimes, and I think some of the secondary teachers will agree that when we talk about does it make sense? You know, if you're subtracting, your number should get smaller because if you're on a number line and you're going backwards, that number should get smaller. But if in first through fifth, the students don't have this practice, when it comes to this, the students don't understand that negatives are smaller than positive numbers. Like they don't understand it. So that connection is not there. And they definitely cannot understand this. -5 plus 3. So when they get to sixth grade and you have a middle school teacher trying to teach this on a number line, the students, and I've had this happen, I've had to go back and clear up so many misconceptions and make sure I front load my instruction with um good understanding of how we move on a number line. And I'm not talking about for sixth graders, I'm talking about for eighth graders, because in eighth grade, one of the student expectations is to put square roots, how to estimate square roots. And estimation of square roots are on a number line. So if you have all these misconceptions and they can't understand how the number line works, you have to go back to this. You have to go back to this. So, understanding that, hey, I'm starting at -5, which is negative, but to go positive, I'm going to the right. And this goes back to adding and subtracting in number sense and making those connections. Math curriculum is building. It is not, hey, I'm teaching for this grade level. If you want your students to be successful, you have to teach not just for your grade level, but for the math curriculum. And I see a lot of elementary teachers, and I get it. The kids are coming behind. I got that. But there are ways to front load your instruction and put some tier 2 strategies that connect the curriculum within your lesson that helps the students to be successful and minimizes that tier 2 intervention and all the kids that have to be in there. Tier 2 instruction does not just begin and end in a small group. Your tier 2 kids don't change their status because they're not in a group. They're still in your classroom. And those same strategies that you put in or teaching your kids, sometimes you have to put them in your whole group, your tier 1 instruction, to strengthen it for those students who are struggling. So, hopefully it's 1025. Hopefully this was something that you all can use. If you were not able to catch this on the catch me live, I do coffee and curriculum um, twice a month. I try to, or maybe once a month. So if you want to keep up with this and you're like, oh, I want to be notified. You can always go to my YouTube channel if you're watching on YouTube, like this live stream, and hit the bell notification, and it'll let you know when I upload content. Because we have gotten to a point in math, if we don't move our children, we are slowly slipping in math and science. And it starts with helping our students be successful in tier one instruction, and then ultimately creating supports in tier two and tier three interventions. So thank you so much for tuning in live. And I'll see you all next time for another episode of Coffee and Curriculum. Bye bye.